I sleep with a transitional object. I sleep with a blankie that I had when I was 1 that like is tattered and, you
still have it.
Still have it, and I still sleep with it every night.
What would a psychologist say about that?
Bad. Wrong.
You're never going to be perfectly happy all the time. The best you can hope for is to be reasonably happy most of the time.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of Reasonably Happy. It's not Crazy Money anymore. It's called Reasonably Happy. This is either episode 2 or 3. I haven't decided yet. We've got other things we're working on, but I'm here with my friend Liz Glazer. Liz is a comedian. She's a former law professor, and she is a fabulously wonderful human being that I look forward to getting to know better in this conversation. Liz.
Paul.
Welcome to Reasonably Happy.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's delightful to be in New York and to be able to just have people that I've known a little bit come over and sit down.
Totally. No, I was really happy. As I said, I was listening to you all morning. And
you were?
Huh? Yeah. And
how'd I sound?
You sound great.
Thank you.
And I imagine that people have told you this before, but you have a great voice.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. People have.
Well, yes.
Okay. Yeah, it's true. I mean, according
Nobody's hired
to me
for my voice.
I would.
Well, thank you.
I don't know what to do, but
I should be doing the voiceovers that Will Arnett gets to do, but I was never Batman, so I guess I don't.
There's still time.
There's time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Totally. Yeah. So I was saying, and you said to save it for the pod.
Yeah.
That one of the things I learned when I was listening to you is that we have Leslie Kahn in common.
Oh, yes. The acting coach.
Yeah. She's amazing.
So Leslie,
yeah.
For people who've been listening to this for a long time or subscribe to my Substack, which you should do, I wrote an article called Dare to Suck.
Yes.
And the first time I heard that concept was in Leslie Kahn's school.
Yeah.
And it has stuck with me for it's been almost 20 years now.
Yeah.
I did 2 sessions of sitcom acting in LA. The first time I was trying to be a comedian out in LA.
Yeah.
I was full-time house MC at the Improvs in Irvine and Brea for 2 years. And they set me up with a class at Leslie's, and they gave you a t-shirt that says Dare to Suck.
Yeah. I don't have the t-shirt. I would love a t-shirt. But Leslie still says that. And she is somebody who I work with still and have. I mean, I used to like be in class more when I lived in LA for sure, but also, during the pandemic over Zoom, and I'm on faculty there sort of technically because like it's not something that I'm able to do as much time-wise, but she's amazing and has helped me a ton, and I meet with her also about stand-up.
Really?
Yeah.
To have her consult with you on stand-up, on your voice, on your, like, on what?
Yeah, like, I think it's like, I just have developed a relationship with her over the years where I trust her as like a teacher and coach, sort of like beyond, the things that she, I think, holds herself out as being amazing at. I'm like, no, you're also amazing at this. And stand-up is one of those things that for her, I know like when I first started meeting with her about it, she's like, this isn't like what I do. And I'm like, no, it is. And it's the same. I mean, so for example, I don't know if you remember, but like one of her kind of keystone concepts is monologues are builds of lists with images that often reverse.
Wait, say that again. Monologues are
builds of lists with images that often reverse.
Okay.
And so that is something I imagine was like a part of anything you did.
I don't remember, again, 2 levels of classes.
Yeah.
We were doing some pretty basic stuff.
Right. And so
monologue might be its own class for her. I don't know.
No, but, I mean, certainly like there are sessions of classes in her studio that are like about like, we're doing monologues this week or whatever, but it's not like just, this is the class on monologues. But so for her, it's all about thoughts that right? And it's, you know, the thought that it's the thought that counts, right? And well, specifically thought, not intent in any kind of broad stroke, because like, I think, you know, a thought is this like flash of like, oh, fuck, or, you know, that's a thought.
Yeah.
And
I have that one a lot.
Sure. Yeah. But like when sometimes what is missing from people's acting, and, you know, I don't mean to divorce myself from this, because like mine too, unless I'm thinking about, I mean, at this point, you know, depending on the day and depending on the audition or whatever, I may or may not do it without thinking about it, right? Having thoughts about what I'm saying, but like, what's my line is often a thought that actors have, and that's not going to work.
It's not a good thought.
Yeah, it's not a good thought. And so a lot of Leslie's process that I think is so genius and actionable, and that's like why it's so genius, is like recognizing that often the reason that something isn't working isn't that it's not written funny or it's not written well, but that like you as the person bringing it to life are not actually being a person. As a person saying a thing in the world, you have thoughts, you naturally build your monologues. And often as actors, we don't, and things fall flat because we're thinking, what's my line? We're going down on our lines when we should be going up on our lines. And like those things are technical, but also they take their root in this is the way that actually people talk when they're saying something to a regular person as a regular person. I mean, and that's not, you know, the whole and the entirety of everything that Leslie teaches, but in terms of its applicability to stand up, I think that that's like a big one. And so, you know, raising stakes is also a big one that like, you know, a lot of times, like you can have the driest delivery, but your stakes have to be super high. And that doesn't mean you have to be huge or loud or whatever. But it does mean that you have to have a thought that causes you to invest and care about what you're saying. Does that make sense?
Totally. And I can't, what surprised me as I started to do stand up more and more was that I could be on stage in front of, you know, 2 or 3 people or 300 people, and I'd be telling my jokes and my brain would be someplace completely different. So when you find yourself in that situation, how does like having a thought bring you back into the room?
Well, the memory, like remembering to have one that's connected to what you're saying, you know?
Like what would it be?
Yeah.
What is
it depends on the thing you're saying.
Yeah.
It's not, because it's not unconnected to the thing. Like if I'm telling you a joke that I've told 900 times,
at least,
I have to tell it afresh in the same way that an actor delivers their whatever afresh every single time. And if it sounds like it's a written thing, it's not going to work, because nobody talks like that.
Yeah.
And similarly, nobody wants, like the thing about stand-up, the ruse is, oh my God, it just sounded like he was just talking.
Yeah.
It sounded like he thought of it in the moment. And that's amazing. And it's acting. Because you didn't.
I've heard Bill Burr say that everybody gets into comedy because they're the guy.
I think Bill Burr, by the way, sorry to interrupt you, is a Leslie person, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, is he really?
I think that's true, but go ahead, sorry.
Well, he said something to the effect of, you get into comedy because your friends tell you you're the funny guy at the bar.
Yeah,
then
not my story, but
then it takes you 10 years to become that person.
That's great.
On stage.
Yeah.
Because you go up there and you feel like, I've got to have an artifice or whatever, and it's like, no, you got to go be yourself.
Right, but be yourself in this way that also kind of catches the craft of it, and you know,
you have to have jokes.
Yeah, and
I'm a traditionalist in that approach to comedy. You need to be funny.
Totally. Yeah. Well, being funny and having jokes are arguably two separate things.
I suppose so. Yeah.
But I agree with you on that, and but I think what's really lovely about what the Bill Burr quote is like getting back to that original thing that got you started, whatever it might have been. Nobody ever told me, first of all, I don't know that I was very often in a bar, and I certainly wasn't the funny guy at the bar. For me, I was funny. I mean, I was a law professor, and I was funny for a law professor. Like my student evaluations would always say, like, she's so funny, which I sometimes am like, could the people
in a
who
real
wrote
estate
those,
law class.
Correct, exactly. Like, could you talk to some of the YouTube commenters, because like there may be some way that you could teach them, to see me as funny. But it's like, I don't know in terms of like the way that I was with my friend group or something. I was always like funny, but I wasn't like the most like, I'm going to do a set right now. Like I guess from time to time I would hold court in one way or another, inadvertently, but I don't know, like I wasn't like a class clown or anything like that.
Why? So what made you, first of all, let's go back a little bit. Why did you become an attorney? What drove you to law school? Because you were supposed to do it? Because your parents had high expectations that the professional life is what we expect out of you?
Yeah. And
Young Elizabeth?
Yes, exactly. Like certainly that was a huge part of it. And I bought into that too. Like I think I just was like, well, what else? I don't even know if I had any concept of anything else. So yes, that.
I have a theory that I've completely constructed in retrospect, so it should be doubted. But I think that I always strove to get good grades. Like you, I got good grades. I went to graduate school. I was a pretty good student, that kind of thing. And from an early age, I got good grades because if I got good grades, then I'm okay.
Yeah.
Like then I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Nobody can, check me on anything.
Yeah.
Like I'm on the right path.
Yeah.
And that was sort of probably self-soothing.
Yeah, I agree with that and relate.
Yeah. You said in one of your more recent comedy bits that you're a nervous person.
Yeah.
Where does that come from?
How does
it manifest?
I think where it comes from and also where it manifests, like, so I have 4 out of 4 Holocaust survivor grandparents.
Shit.
So, which if
Sorry,
you're,
no,
hilarious. It's okay.
That's a hilarious setup.
Thank you. Yeah. It's a perfect score if you're Jewish. And I do think, number one, there's theories that abound that kind of anxiety is inherited, but like, okay, so maybe. And whether or not those theories are true, demonstrably or otherwise, like I do think that there's always this like imagining of the worst case scenario. Anytime I feel safe, literally the next thought I have is like, I could see this entire thing as a war zone. I could see, and I think because like, knock on wood, I'm Jewish, but I hedge my bets. Like, that reality hasn't afflicted me personally, Not
yet.
Yeah, I know. And that's the thing. I think, to the extent that I ever truly resonated with like law school and being a lawyer, this type of thinking is the only way. Because like as a lawyer, you must be thinking of worst case scenarios at all times.
Yeah.
Like I drafted contracts. I was a real estate lawyer. And so, we're in a building right now. This building has leases all up and down the building. There was, a sale of it from somebody else. All of those papers are lawyers who've written in worst case scenarios for everything that may happen and never has happened, right?
I remember as a business person, I was in sales, and so we'd work with lawyers on contracts.
Sure.
And lawyers, especially corporate lawyers, have to play the game of, are we 100% protected?
Yep.
Or can we actually do business?
Yeah.
Like, can you write a contract that's permissive enough to allow the partner to have some leeway as well? Because they've got lawyers of their own.
Yeah.
Who are trying to write an ironclad contract as well.
Right. And so, it's really a job where you're paid to worry.
Yeah.
And to take that worry and make it into language and negotiate with other worriers about whose worries win in terms of like getting the deal done. And that element of it I could get with, because that is naturally how my brain works. But that wasn't why or how I got into it. That was more something I sort of like discovered once I was there, right? And when I was a real estate lawyer, I was a transactional real estate lawyer in the city. And so, for the very short period that I practiced, that's what I did. And then I taught property law because I had done, just shy of 2 years of practicing real estate law, like transactional real estate law in the city. And so it made sense. Okay, we have property class. Everybody needs to take it at school. You know, we need somebody to teach it. You'll teach it because, I mean, the reality was that I got a C in property as a law student.
Right.
But I think that like ultimately pushed me harder to like actually figure out how to teach it.
Go teach it, right?
Yeah. But anyway, so, yeah, like that's, I think, how the worry, the anxiety manifests.
You went to yeshiva, correct?
Yeah, well, for high school and for not undergrad, elementary school.
Okay, so I always try to find, okay, what are some things we have in common? You and I both quit our successful corporate jobs or professional jobs to become stand-up comedians, and I want to hear more about that in a second. But two, we both went to religious school growing up.
Yeah.
So I 12 years of Catholic school.
Yeah.
You did yeshiva.
Yeah.
How would you, like, it seems to me like Catholic guilt and Jewish guilt are like Merlot and Cabernet, right? It's kind of the same thing with different nuances.
I think so. I mean, I think of, and correct me here, because when I think of Catholic guilt, I think of it as like, well, I told you so. I don't know. You might be sorry about that. And I think of Jewish guilt as like, I don't know what's going to happen. And I don't know.
You would do that to your mother. You would do that to your mother.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah. So I don't know if I'm right with drawing those lines.
Well, I think the Catholic guilt to me, and I think shame and guilt are a package deal.
Sure.
You know, it's the salt and pepper spices of Catholic doctrine or tactics of raising your kids. And it's passed down from generation to generation, which is if you do the wrong thing, you will go to hell. There is a hell and you will go to it.
Right.
So, you know, there was always sort of this looming punishment in the future, as opposed to, it was not personal to your mom, like I feel like my Jewish friends tell me. It was more like, you know, Jesus will smite you. Or maybe the Father smited you. That was his role. Jesus was more of like the soft touch. They good cop, bad cop you, the members of the Trinity.
Yeah.
But so it was always sort of based on this, like, you're a bad person and you should feel bad about yourself if you do something wrong.
Yeah.
Right, original sin, which is the biggest mind fuck you can put on any kid. Hey kid, welcome to the world. You've already fucked up.
Right.
Right? Here's your student loan debt. I just fucking got here.
Yeah.
That's a bit I've never done on stage, but like I'm trying to No, but I think it's such a like a way to manipulate you to say like, okay, you were born broken.
Right.
And the only way to be unbroken is if you follow these rules, which happen to mean you belong to our club, you give us money, you follow our rules, and then you raise all your 9 kids in this same tradition. It's like that sounds like Amway on some level.
Right. Yeah.
So that was sort of my Catholic guilt.
Yeah. Right. And I guess like, I had what may be I don't know what the right adjective for it, but like an interestingly singular experience in my Jewish upbringing, because I was sent to an Orthodox Jewish school for 12 years, from 1st through 12th grade.
Okay, what does Orthodox means?
Really
the black coats?
No,
that's
it can be.
That's Hasidic.
Yeah. Orthodox is like, I don't know.
You keep kosher.
Yeah. But Mati Litwack's joke is, I think he may be going by Matisyahu, so I mean that person, and he's great, that Orthodox Judaism is the highest difficulty setting, I think is the way that he puts the joke. And like, that's certainly how I felt those who were teaching me and in that world were thinking of it. But now that my wife, for example, is a Reform rabbi, and I don't think that Reform rabbis or congregants or anybody think of Orthodoxy as like the higher difficulty set. Like it's like, it's
a choice.
Yeah. Like it can be just different, but I think Orthodox tends not to think of it that way. So like, I don't really, I just sort of am aware of different.
Do people who practice a more stringent or adherent level feel themselves to be spiritually superior?
It's not exactly for me to say. I mean, sometimes that was my perception of it being in the world. But the rest of what I was going to say is that I was in that school and my parents at home didn't subscribe to the teachings of the religion that they sent me to learn. And so, and like what I would learn later, meaning as early ago as like in the past year and a half, is that I guess the less religious, like the conservative in the religious Judaism sense of the word, school in town was having a leak like in the building. And so when I went on the tour with my parents of that elementary school, there was a leak and class was being held in a hallway. And my mom was like, I'm not going to spend all this money to send you to private school and be taught in a hallway. And the other option at that time was the Orthodox school. And then once I was in it from 1st to 8th grade, liked it enough, had friends, then I continued in a different school, but the same kind of world for 9th through 12th grades. But that whole time, we would learn at school, don't, turn on the lights or drive a car on the Sabbath.
Right.
And then Friday night came around and we were driving to the mall or whatever. So that was always, so being that kind of...
You're putting the Shabbos Goy out of business is what you were doing.
Well, I mean, but nobody would hire you as a Shabbos Goy if you're not a Goy.
Right.
Because like then it's on them.
Of course, right.
So you don't work. You can't get any work. It's discrimination. That's why I became a lawyer on behalf of the Jewish Shabbos Goys.
I love the fact that new to New York, living on the Upper West Side, that there are businesses that literally close down from Thursday night until Sunday morning.
Yeah, sure.
Like B&H Photo is they are this
huge
dominant audio-visual company.
Yeah, great.
Like
too.
one of the only one that exists in the country, except like Sweetwater in Indiana, which is not Orthodox.
Yeah. Reform.
But they are, they won't even service you online.
Yeah.
Between those hours. And we've got, is it Noidue, N-O-I-D-U-E on Columbus?
Oh, yes, that you brought to my house. That was so nice.
I was happy to do that.
Yeah.
But they shut down. They're closed. And it's like, hey, they live their values, and it's sort of legit. I find it to be,
Yeah. Totally.
I disagree with all of their doctrine,
right?
But I think it's great that they live.
Yeah, they're committed.
Yeah,
totally. And for me, that's why I say, like, I don't know exactly the adjective that I would use to describe the experience of growing up as that kind of insider and outsider at the same time. Because, like, I mean, my dad, my dad is not alive anymore, and I love my dad very much. And there was never a time I didn't find him to be a complicated person. And so, my parents were married like throughout. He was always in my life, and he was a weird guy in great ways too.
He's Latvian.
Yeah, he came from Latvia, from Riga, and had an accent like, I mean, he was in this country longer than he was ever in Latvia, and he sounded like he was directly coming from Latvia. Yeah, like he was here for 46 years, and he sounded like he arrived 46 minutes ago.
At a certain point, is that just like he wants?
I think it was a choice.
His brand.
Yeah. Well, I also think like it's not for nothing that like he had friends who came with him that sounded more American, and I think for him, he was a very stubborn guy, and I think that part of that is to explain like his adherence to his way of being, accent and all, that like he would still kind of cry language barrier. I was like, you've been here for 46 years. Like, what's the deal? And again, I mean, it's not like what would I have done if I at 26 years old, which was when he came from Riga, Latvia to New York. I can't even imagine like relocating in that way. And so would I also, when I'm 73 years old, be like saying, I don't understand? Maybe. I don't know. Yeah. But he also was a very like hot-headed, stubborn, strong-headed, like all of those things described my dad. And he somehow, like, and I was in this school from first grade. I was 6 when I entered the school that I was in that was telling me, you have to pray 3 times a day. You got to keep kosher, all of these values that they instilled. And then we weren't doing it at home, which
Right.
okay, fine. But we did keep kosher. But I do think that was because my mother was like, you can get more dishes.
Right.
And so we were so kosher because she had the meat and the milk.
Right.
Yeah. And then the fancy meat, the fancy milk. Then there's Passover, which is an opportunity for a whole new set of meat, whole new set of milk, whole new set of fancy meat, fancy milk. So, I mean, one of the ways my anxiety manifests, to be honest with you, I love my mother. Thank God, she's alive and well. And also I do have anxiety about how many dishes I will inherit.
Yes.
And how much they meant to her. And actually my daughter was over at my mom's house with me, and my mother's living room is this museum-like situation. And she's got this literally gold table on a bright blue Persian rug in this room that nobody needs to ever go into. And my daughter is crawling around and walking with the assistance of the gold. And then she picks up a tea dispenser from a tea set that I mean, I don't know what I'm sure it's an antique and whatever. And she picks it up because she picks up everything because she's 1. And my mom says to her, well, maybe you'll get that because I don't think that my children care about having it. So, I mean, maybe Eloise will be really into dishes. There's certainly a lot of them that she could have, but that's, I think, why we were kosher.
We moved 4 sets of china up here. And,
wow.
And 0 of them was, we got no, we got just daily mealware or whatever when we got from Crate and Barrel or Williams-Sonoma or something. But this generational china stuff.
Yeah.
Is a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot to manage. And when you're going from Atlanta, big house, lots of pantries, to the Upper West Side, it's do we really need all these? Do we need 2 different sets of Christmas china? I don't think we do.
Yeah. That's so funny.
It was, but I just stopped asking and shoved it as high up in the cabinets in the kitchen as possible.
I get that. Well, also it's I was at my mother's house and I'm a free mugger, which is not my term. I think it's from a podcast that now doesn't exist called Forever 35.
Mm-hmm.
That's Kate Spencer and Dori Shafrir, that my wife is a huge fan of, and I was lucky enough to be on it, which I was excited. My wife was beyond. And so anyway, I know that Dori and Kate, I don't remember who is who for this purpose. One of them takes to-go mugs and one of them takes free a home mug. And I'm a free mugger. I do not like a to-go cup. I just think it doesn't taste as good or whatever.
I agree with you.
Yeah, thanks. And so whatever, I take the mug from that I'm drinking at home, and if I have to run an errand, I take it with me in the car.
So you'll go to Starbucks and put it in your mug?
No, not to get coffee.
Oh.
To go to the post office or something.
Right.
If I'm already drinking coffee.
Yeah, I see. As opposed to your little plastic.
Yeah, I'm not going to transfer whatever. So anyway, I'm at my mother's and I'm drinking coffee at her house in her mug, and then I take the mug, and it's she doesn't need this other mug, but she has the full set. And I cannot tell you, this was 10 days ago. She's like, Elizabeth, when you come home, don't forget my mug.
My God.
And so her attachment to the china is extremely real.
Yeah.
And, I love for my mother to have preference, I think one thing about aging parents, I don't know if this is connectable for you, is that I think a lot of what can be really hard about seeing your parents age is seeing them care less about the stuff that at one point was really important in their lives.
Oh my God.
Right?
Yeah, I've done that. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah.
Well, I watched my mother, both my parents are deceased now.
Sorry.
Thank you. My mom died early and it was not good. My dad lived to 93.
Wow.
And he had a great run and he was a charming gent up until the very end.
That's great.
But my mother, we downsized them and I'm one of 6 kids. And so being one of 6 kids when you're young is not so much fun in the sense that you have to share everything and there's always somebody in your room. And my oldest brother had two little brothers in his room until he was in high school.
Okay.
And then my older brother shared a room with me until he was a junior in high school. And go figure, when we all got our own rooms, we got along a whole lot better.
Yeah.
But when you're older and you have all these siblings, sharing the work of taking care of aging parents is it a mitzvah? Is that what it is? It's a blessing.
A blessing. I don't know. Yeah.
It's like a wonderful gift because, man, it's really hard, and your parents need somebody there, and there's 6 people who get to kind of juggle that responsibility.
Yeah.
But in one of their many downsizings, I was going through my mind, and we did this, there was a lot of things I looked at was like, okay, these trophies go, this plaque, whatever goes, all these old pictures, they go. It's like they've been in a drawer since we moved from LA 14 years ago.
Right.
I'm just going to put them in another drawer.
Yeah. What are we keeping?
But I watched my mother used to teach Bible study at the church, or like adult religious education, and she had all these notes and cassette tapes of the class, and that was really her sense of identity and where she felt she was doing her best work. It's like if you took your best comedy shows were on VHS tape, and at a certain point you had to just throw them away.
Right.
I just watched her look at it and think, oh, this is trash now.
Yeah.
And it was profound.
Yeah.
It was poignant.
Totally. Yeah.
So I wonder, what are we going to be irrational about? Or what are we already what are our irrational attachments that we have that our kids are going to be like, get rid of it? Or is all our because all our stuff's digital now,
right? It's
less tangible.
Yeah. I mean, I think because I was raised with a lot of stuff and my mom really caring about stuff a lot. I am able to let go of stuff. I mean, for me, I sleep with a transitional object. I sleep with a blankie named Pachi.
What is transitional object?
Oh, I think that's like the psych term for if your kid has a lovey or whatever. In a textbook, it would be called a transitional object.
Interesting.
But so mine is the blankie that I had when I was 1 that is tattered and,
You still have it.
Still have it, and I still sleep with it every night.
What would a psychologist say about that?
Bad. Wrong. Yeah, something. I mean, but yeah, I have an irrational attachment to, I'm going to say him because I've always gendered him male.
What does it represent to you?
I mean, my mom made him, and so there's something there. I have always slept with him, and so does my wife.
You're having a threesome.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my wife also sleeps with a blankie, although the story with that is sadder, and I know you know some of it, but we had a stillbirth for her first pregnancy, our first pregnancy, and the baby blanket that our first daughter, Leo Pearl, was in is something my wife sleeps with, and it's embroidered now and whatever, but she didn't sleep with a blankie, but then acquired one.
I'm going to give her a pass on that.
Well, yeah. But what am I doing? I know. It doesn't make any sense.
You called it irrational. Is it irrational?
Well, the attachment. Because I was thinking about I for example.
Do you take it with you on the road?
Sometimes. Sometimes I don't because I'm too worried.
You'll lose it?
Yes.
You'll leave it in the Motel 6 in St. Louis?
Totally. Well, I mean, there have been really big dramas with Pachi because when I was 8, we went to London as a family and I left Pachi in the sheets and the sheets were washed at the hotel. And we my parents called downstairs secretly because they didn't want me to freak out. And while they're trying to find Pachi, I noticed Pachi's missing. And, we did get Pachi back, but it's how many times can you expect? I mean, that was the service, first of all, in Europe. Second of all, that was in 1988.
Right.
I don't think in 2024 America, we're getting Pachi back.
It's like the watch. It's like Butch's watch in Pulp Fiction.
Oh, yeah.
Christopher Walken. I kept this watch up my ass in the prison camp.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do with Pachi.
Pachi.
Yeah, it's going to be challenging, though, because now Pachi has this like ball of yarn as part of him, but I guess I could work it out.
So interesting.
Yeah.
See what we discover when we ask good, open-ended questions?
Yeah, you are a really good interviewer.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So you mentioned your wife
Yeah.
several times. It's gonna get out on this podcast that you're gay.
Yeah.
Did you feel, when we're talking about guilt and things like that, did you struggle? Was guilt ever an issue with you as you thought about your sexuality?
Yes, because whereas my parents and school differed sharply on so many tenets of Orthodox Judaism, for whatever reason, they agreed on, but being gay is not allowed. So
Okay, is that Judaism's position on?
I mean, you can the thing about Jews is we love to argue. There's a whole Talmud that's with that as its core, not concept, but the idea of rabbis kind of arguing and figuring it out is common in Judaism. But I don't think that anybody's going on record being no, being gay is fine. The technical prohibition is that a man is not allowed to lie with another man. That's Torah.
Right.
But then...
Well, clearly that's gross. I mean, lesbians, on the other hand, that's hot.
Sure, right. And so, there are people who, it's undeniable that is what is written.
Right.
And so then the implication is but is it okay for women? And I don't think anybody really says it's fine.
Yeah.
But so that's sort of what's there.
So I saw in one of your, I think it was your story last week that you were in Philadelphia and you said you drove past a place and you said that's where your college boyfriend lived.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I had a boyfriend
Did you
college.
have that haircut when you were in college? No.
No, I got it.
You were wearing
in law school.
Lily Pulitzer. You were blonde with flow.
So it's interesting because I dated a guy who, was from the Midwest and was Republican and,
Joke's on him.
Yeah, it kind of, very country clubby type person. And I loved him, and it wasn't fake or anything, but I did tell him at the beginning of our relationship, I do think I'm gay, and I don't think he really heard it exactly. And
guys are not known for listening when they're trying to score, Liz.
Right. Well, anyway, but we were together for a while, and a lot of the fights that we would have, and we would fight a lot, were connected to why don't you wear makeup? Why don't you wear colors? Why don't, whatever. And it was just what he grew up with was totally not whatever I was ever going to be.
You didn't have any monogrammed Pappagallo purses or something?
Right. Well, I would because his parents would buy me stuff. But it's he would be Mom, can you take Liz shopping so that she can look regular? And regular was a hot pink, top, it was wild.
Green Doc Martens.
Well, I don't know, no Doc Martens. No,
I know, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. But I did have green Doc Martens, interestingly. But green suede, that's a memory I haven't thought of in a while.
They sound cool.
Yeah, they were cool. I haven't kept them. But anyway, so so we were together for basically all of college, and I was, I never wanted to dress up in ways that he would find attractive, and that a lot of our relationship was just why do you like me? I don't even get it. And a lot of what he would say, it's also I want to couch this and we were children.
Sure.
That I don't still think of this with any regret or animus or anything like that. And nothing approaching that. In my mind, I'm this was a formative relationship.
Totally.
That was good. I hope, that he sees it also as I learned a lot, and then I found
you were decent to each other.
Yeah. I think, I do feel bad. He was very upset when I broke up with him. I think it was a huge blow that there was the gay stuff.
So you came out to him when you broke up, or what?
Well, I did tell him before, but also it was this thing. We were long distance for 6 months because he graduated before me. And I was that thing, like I told you, like I feel like it's
Detail.
like real. And specifically when he was away, I think I just had more of an opportunity to not be his girlfriend. And then I was like having crushes on women. And, you know, then there was like my friend Marissa, who I'm still friends with, and like I was like, I think I like Marissa, and we would eventually hook up, and you know that didn't last as far as a relationship goes, but when we did, the next morning I called my boyfriend and was like, hey, so like I hooked up with Marissa. He's like, I hate you, and you know, and then that was like how it ended. And I feel bad about that, you know, like I don't know. But
I was on a podcast with a friend of mine's son who was in high school at the time. And he was like, what is it, you know, tell me about how you deal with, you know, the relationships that don't work out. I'm like, they all don't work out.
Right.
Except one.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Right.
If you're lucky.
Yeah.
You know, but like everything up to the point of getting married and hopefully staying married is a broken relationship if you want to look at it that way.
Yeah.
But you can also look, I think what you were saying is like, hey, look, if you can look back and say these people don't hate me, or that I wasn't completely duplicitous,
sure. Right.
then I think that's kind of a win. And what would you want for your daughter? Like when you think about relationships, because they're not all, only one's going to work out. And hopefully,
right.
You know, so
I mean,
what do you want to be able to say about
the
guys or the girls that she dates?
I just like, when I think of my daughter, you know, what I hope is that like nobody hurts her in a way, God forbid, that's like real.
Permanent.
Yeah. And so
she's going to get hurt.
Yeah, I get that. So, you know, it still hurts. I mean, she's so little that, you know, I don't know that I'm quite there with the reality that she's gonna have friends that leave her out, or you know, God. any of that is still just heartbreaking. And like I'm like, but she's the best, you know. And but then it's like, if you're not that person in some way, I feel like you also have an uphill battle in terms of relating to people when you're older, if you've never been, you know, that person, you know.
Well, hopefully it instills some degree of humility or self-awareness.
Yeah, like I want her to have as much fun as it seems like she's having now. Because now she's like, you know, her vibe. What's her vibe? Like she's just like, and like runs across the room, you know, or crawls across the room or whatever, because she's so excited to like take all of the stuff off of a shelf. And, you know, that kind of fire and energy towards fun and loving what she's doing it's just amazing to me to watch. And I think about also like my parents, I love my parents, and I think that their inherited trauma or whatever it is, like, caused them to approach looking at me and be like, how are we going to make sure she's okay? Mm-hmm. And being okay was having a profession and like making sure that I was able to fend for myself. And it's not that I don't want that for Eloise, but I think when I look at my daughter, given my experiences of leaving, you know, a secure job and all that, I'm just like, what is she like? What makes her happy? Yeah. And now it seems to be drumming and, you know, pulling apart everything that's in her distance and viewpoint.
Child drummer, you got to get her on Instagram. That's
oh, really?
Yeah, that's the next thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's generational. Like, there's commonalities. My parents are probably there. I mean, they were both Catholic, so we don't have the Holocaust gene, but they had the Depression gene.
Sure.
And so there's all this very like, it could all go away tomorrow kind of thing. Yeah. And the best decisions I've made in my life have been the ones that, and I wasn't doing this to go against my parents. I was very much an establishment child.
Same. Yeah.
And I wanted to succeed. I wanted a corporate job, but the best decisions I made were going against what the safe choices were.
Yeah.
Like I didn't go into consulting because I was just like, I don't think that's me.
Yeah.
Even though I had a $100,000 offer in 1997, which was my dad never made six figures.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I was like, I just don't think that's me. It turned out to be absolutely the right decision.
Yeah.
You know, I chose a school to go to I got a full ride at Notre Dame and I didn't go there.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to go to this other school, Tuck.
Yeah.
And they were like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And I was like, I just think it's the right, I just feel it.
Yeah.
I've,
relate
quitting
to
my
that.
job to go into comedy. Still not clear that was the right decision, but it feels right.
Yeah. Well, and I think I am with you on that. And like whenever I've made choices like that, it's always been on a gut feeling mostly.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that I'm like, oh, that was so good that I did that, in one way or another.
So why did you quit your... You were not only a law professor, but you were being published. You had prestige, status, bright future ahead of you.
Yeah, I mean, I think what it boils down to is I liked this better. Like
How did you know what this was?
I mean, initially I took an improv class.
Why?
I think because I just wanted to do something fun, and I was visiting away for a semester in Chicago, and I had gone to law school in Chicago, so I was aware of the improv scene. And so I took a class because I was like, okay, well, while I'm visiting, at that time it was Loyola, Chicago, I'll take an improv class.
At Second City?
It was at IO, Improv Olympic, but whatever. So, and then it was one of the teachers, because I took 2 levels. So it was a teacher of the second level that a couple of years after that, when I would reach out to her to do improv, because she wasn't teaching anymore, I was like, oh, could we do something together? Because I just thought she was amazing. She was like, you might try stand-up. I think you'd be good at stand-up. And she gave me a spot on 2 of her shows. She was having shows, and she's like, I'll let you do 10 minutes. And first I said no, because I was like, what? I don't even know what that would even be. And then eventually I said yes. And once I did it, like some people talk about the laughs, and it's not, I mean, that's nice, but like for me, it was, I can just be totally honest. And that was the thing. Not that I was lying when I was doing property law class, but I think that there was something about without having anything needing to be tethered to, this is going to be on the test, this is on the bar, this is something you might need in practice, like nothing, you don't need to know any of this, but it's going to be cathartic for us to laugh about it together. That was the thing that got me. And I mean, I still think about that because as I've grown as a comedian, there are times that I'm like, like you get so hung up on, well, what are the jokes and what are the lines that will get the laugh? And that's, I mean, I'm with you that's super important. It's the thing. But also remembering that like what was attractive to me about it to begin with was the total just say it aspect of it. And so when I'm crafting a set, that's what I'm thinking about as well. Clearly it's like, yeah, I need to have them laughing at this pace and this clip throughout the set. And then, okay, well, maybe we could take a break from the quick laughs, like to get started, because I need them to trust me. And then maybe I can like get them with a little story. Okay, so we'll have a 10-second break. Or I think about that, of course, especially as I'm ramping up to tape something.
Sure.
But like, I really am like, I try my hardest to be like, okay, but like, what do I want to reveal in this set? You know what I mean?
And how do you answer that question? Like, what are the things you want to reveal?
Well, like, it depends on the audience. And so I think about, I try, for better or worse, and I think it's both, I am good at strategy. Like I was a good law professor in the sense that like, I think I was a good teacher. I won some awards. I got papers published or whatever. Yeah. But the thing that I was really good at, and almost like better at that than like my love for the game, was I was good at like figuring out, okay, this is what you need to succeed in this world, and here's how I can get it. And whether that was like, this paper needs a better title, and then I can get it accepted at a better law review. And like some of my colleagues were like, wow, how do you get such good placements? Which is like, it's such
positioning, really.
Yeah, exactly. It's marketing.
Yeah.
And that's no small feat.
Well, I mean, look, I think it's interesting in like social media where if you could put the same 30 seconds of content in a different order, and one will have 4,000 views and one will have 4 million views.
Totally.
And so it's really about how do you get people's attention? You know, and I mean, they call that clickbait on the internet with like, there's a whole science to writing headlines. And it's not about, what's the most intelligent headline.
Right.
It's what's the most enticing headline.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, like when I was getting ready to tape a set for Don't Tell Comedy, for example, I asked friends who had done them, I was like, do you have any advice? And specifically, like, what might you have done, if anything, differently, were you to have this opportunity anew? And a few friends shared really helpful things, like, okay, remember that the audience is like this age segment and think about the bits that you think would most likely go viral. Somebody told me, I mean, it's almost like a great way to think of virality, but I thought it was well said, is like, do something that put a joke out that makes someone think, oh, that's so me. Like, oh, I'm so that person in that joke. And so I really applied that filter, to putting together that set. And now, like, I have a set upcoming where I'm taping for Nateland. And so I think, okay, what of me genuinely, if I were to be in a room with his audience?
Correct.
What lies at the center of the Venn diagram between what is authentically me and them? And
Jerusalem.
Yes, it'll be 100% about it. And so I'm just like thinking about that as I craft the set. And a lot of it is just like free writing and like, okay, maybe I'll do this joke, maybe I'll do, whatever, like normal comedian stuff. But I do try at least like to think about, if I were meeting people who love him, what would I probably end up talking about?
Without trying too hard.
Yeah.
While being yourself.
Totally.
So I think like I see mistakes that a lot of comics make. Younger comics in front of old audiences, just to use age since you brought it up. Younger comics in front of old audiences or vice versa.
Right.
They either don't recognize the difference.
Yeah.
If you get a hipster in front of a 55-year-old crowd and he doesn't address that,
right,
it's going to hurt a set.
Yeah.
And yet, if you try to pander to the audience, that's also, people can smell that from across the room.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And so you have to be like, okay, how can I be myself in front of this audience?
Yeah.
With the awareness that I'm not one of them.
Yeah, totally. I think that's right. And like, I don't do any of it as like me trying to like pull one over on anything.
Of course
it's really,
not. Of course
it's really
not.
just like, if I were genuinely trying to like connect, which I am trying to do. I'm not trying to do anything other than like, let's laugh together.
Right.
So what would I likely showcase about myself in that environment?
I do shows at country clubs.
Right.
And I do shows, and I'm going to bars in Brooklyn now.
Right.
And I'm not necessarily doing the same stuff in each of those venues.
Right.
I'm still trying to be me.
Yeah. Yeah. And the reality is that like, and maybe for me, it comes from living in a bunch of different worlds simultaneously, whether that was like my parents being less religious than school, me having a boyfriend and being gay, or, whatever it might have been at various times. It's not like there are so many shades of ourselves. And then there can be a moment when you can be fully yourself. And it's not the case. Like the world, even though that is true, isn't as dystopian as like Severance, right? Like it needn't be that we sever parts of ourselves. It can also be that just in some environments, certain parts of yourself are more shown And that's okay too.
Right.
Does that make sense?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
So anyway, I still don't know what I'm doing for the set, but whatever.
All right.
Okay.
This is blown by. We're at 56 minutes, Mike. Is that right?
Okay.
Okay. We didn't even talk about therapy, and darn it.
I just came from there.
I know you did. That's why I was going to say, and
Yeah.
we'll just have to leave that for next time.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to try something that, Mike, we can either cut or leave in.
My favorite is when someone says on a recording, like, we could cut this, and then they don't. And I'm like, ooh, we're getting the good stuff.
Okay. So we're trying to do this thing called spontaneous haiku.
Okay.
5 syllables, 7 syllables, 5 syllables.
Oh, right. Oh, God. Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
So spontaneous haiku about happiness.
Okay. 5, 7. Happiness is what you like. 5.
I think that's 7. Happiness.
Oh,
is
right.
what you
Words.
like. Okay.
Happiness is what you like to do in the moment that is right now.
All right.
We did it.
I like it.
Thank you.
What's coming up for Liz Glazer? Nate Land thing?
Yeah.
When is that out? Do we know?
I don't know when it's out. It's October 1st in Nashville if anyone listening wants to come.
Okay, at Zany's?
Yeah, in the lab. You can look. It says Nate Land Showcase. And
Nate Land
please
Showcase
come.
at Nashville. I've got a lot of friends in Nashville.
Oh, do you? Great.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I went to college in Memphis, so I got a lot of friends in Nashville. And you have a new special in the can.
I do.
So
Yeah.
you're shopping it?
Yeah.
And Hulu and Netflix and the CEO of HBO are all knocking on your door begging to buy it.
Yeah, so unfortunately, it's a bidding war, and we just don't know. I'm always nervous that everybody's mad at me, and that's been a real problem.
That's where your contract negotiation skills will go. Anyway,
Yeah.
best of luck for that.
Thanks,
Hopefully
Paul.
that'll come out soon.
Yeah.
And look for Liz. Go on YouTube and watch Liz's appearance on Don't Tell Comedy.
Yeah, please do.
And you're LizGlazer.com?
Dear LizGlazer.com.
Dear Liz Glazer.
Yeah.
I love
But
it.
you can find it either way.
All right, Liz, thank you so much.
Thank you, Paul.